Welcome back to Brilliant Fools. My name is Adam Green, and on this Mindset Monday, I want to talk about financial statements. I know it doesn't really seem like a mindset kind of thing, but I want to talk about where our mindset should be when it comes to something like accounting, financial statements, that digging down into the details, which oftentimes is not very fun at all, but very, very beneficial if we look at it the correct way. And I especially want to look at what does scripture have to say about financial statements. There's not a whole lot in there, right? I mean, I don't know of anything that actually says financial statements. In fact, one thing, or really the only word that comes to mind that I know of that has to do with accounting, is what Jesus said on the cross. It is finished. The original word there is teleo or tetelestai. And that is an accounting term in that time, which means the debt has been paid in full and you mark it off, and then someone's account is wiped clear. So that is what Christ did for us, which is what we can take to the bank for sure and will. I mean, that's the ticket that he bought with his life, with his death on the cross, so that when we stand before God and he says, "Why should I let you into my heaven?" we say, "Because I have this ticket here that was paid for by your son, and it's a VIP all access pass. And that's why I should get into heaven." Not only that, but he's alive and active in us and through us in the world today. And that includes in areas like accounting. And as I was looking through this, I was kind of thinking, there's something to this for sure. And really what came to my mind was clarity. So there's the verse about God is not a God of confusion, but of order, right? And of peace. And that's in, is it 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians? Let me get that for you here. 1 Corinthians 14:33. Not a God of confusion, but of peace. Okay, so there's definitely that. And one of the things that financial statements do is help you to know what's going on. But then the other thing that I thought about was in James. In James chapter 1, starting in verse 5, he says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But he must ask in faith, without any doubting. For the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For that man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways." Now, I have seen this over and over and over again, working with small businesses throughout the years. There's a sense that if I know what's in my bank, then I know what's going on in my business. Of course, I have a successful business. I've got money in the bank. There are many reasons why there can be money in the bank. And that money isn't always all accounted for. Some of it may belong to people that you owe, or it may have to go to payroll this week, or it may have to go to vendors for materials and supplies. Do you know if you have enough in there? This is where the financial statements can come in. And if you don't know, if you're kind of winging it and you think you have a good idea, then there's that doubt that comes in. And I've seen this over and over again too in businesses. When that doubt comes in, I see this. I see the double-mindedness. I see the instability and the lack of wisdom. And I see that in my own life. When doubt comes in, that wisdom does not. Even if I act on something I think I'm clear on, I think I'm good on, but I may not be, I may not have the full picture. If I act on it with confidence, even if I'm wrong, the wisdom will come and I can adjust and I can move forward. Financial statements give you that wisdom. Your profit and loss statement is huge. It's huge to know what's actually going on in the business. Your balance sheet. I know so many business owners over the years that I've heard that say, "I don't really mess with the balance sheet. I know what's going on in profit and loss. That's all I need to know. That's what's telling me what's in the business." To an extent, but the balance sheet shows your position and it shows your strength or weakness, your lack of strength, your lack thereof, right? And it shows a lot to you there. Your cash flow statement. That's usually a better picture of where your cash is going than the profit and losses. I say better picture. it completes the picture. Let's put it that way. It can complete the picture. Now, there are things in there, even in the cash flow statement, that aren't actual cash flow, like depreciation, things like that. It's not really cash flow, but we're not going to worry about that. That's a reconciliation type statement. I'll get into that more tomorrow, Technical Tuesday. But it's a more complete picture. And then if you really want to be stronger, if you really want the clarification, if you really want that confidence and not doubt, then you budget. And you have budgeted financial statements. And now you start running your budget against your actual. Now you start looking at your trends over time. What happens? You have a sense of seasonality. Everybody has a sense of seasonality in their business. I know my season picks up here and I'm going to have to prepare for it because I've been through it before. But if you really want to see it and have the confidence and not wonder, am I going to have enough to cover this season as things pick up? Then you start budgeting and you start looking at trends. That's the best way to budget. You look at historical trends and then you budget for the future and then you compare against actual and you make the changes you need to make. And now you have wisdom. Wisdom in scripture is not just knowledge. It's that skillful application of knowledge. So if any of you lacks wisdom, in fact, even here in James 1, verse 5, that word for wisdom, Sophia, can also be translated skill. It's a skill. So it's knowledge that is applied. And once you know, and then you apply that knowledge, the better you do that, the more wisdom you have and the wiser you are. So this is where I believe that financial statements really start coming into the picture when it comes to your business. And it's one of the things that I've obviously have a bias for because I've been in it for a long time. So that makes sense. I mean, I'm going to have a bias for the financial statements, but I really do believe that it is part of something that we can see as a biblical principle that is just kind of in effect in life. If I have doubt, then the wisdom doesn't come. And a lot of that's because I'm more hesitant to do if I have doubt, right? And wisdom is applying the knowledge. It's doing something. It's the action. It's the skill moved forward. So I think it is a biblical principle, but I think it's just a life principle. It's one of those things that God is saying, look, this is how it works. This is how the world is, and this is how the Spirit is. And I think it applies in many ways. If it's good for your Christian life, it's good for your business. So if you have any more questions about that, if you have any questions, then just let me know. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear what it is that you may have questions about. And until the next time, thanks.